Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar about the cradle-to-cradle standard for product circularity. It's great that we have such a big group with us today. My name is Karin Ekberg, and I'm the CEO of Leadership and Sustainability. I have a long experience in the sustainability area and have worked at many different companies, actually, in the consulting sector, but also in the industry. So, for example, I have worked at Adidas, where I was responsible for environment globally, and earlier in other positions as a sustainability director. Leadership and sustainability, we actually are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, and we are an assessment body with Cradle to Cradle. And with that, I would like to hand over to Kim to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Karin. Also a hard welcome from my side. I am Kim Beatrice and I am a sustainability manager at Leadership and Sustainability. I do have an educational background in international business and also in sustainability. And I have joined LNS as a working student about 3 years ago. And 1.5 years ago, I then moved into a full-time position. And now I am co-leading the supply chain team, managing the verification and certification schemes globally. And recently, I also have completed my training to become an approved cradle-to-cradle assessor. Next, I would like to present some of the basics of the Zoom webinar platform to you. At first, I would like to mention that the audience will be muted during the whole webinar in order to ensure a best quality of the audio. But in case you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the question function. For that, at the right-hand side, you can see a screenshot of the question function, and you find a button to open the chat window, where you can then type in your question and then send it to us. And also on a side note for you, it's good to know that we will provide a link to download the presentation afterwards in a follow-up email. Coming to the agenda, here's a quick look at what we'll be covering today. We have already started with a welcome and an introduction to LNS, and next we will explore circularity in the textile industry and what it means and why it matters. And after that, we will walk you through the requirements of the Cradle-to-Cradle Certified Circularity Standard. And then we will look at some industry case studies to see how this actually works in practice. And afterwards, we will share a bit more about our company and the role we play in supporting companies. And lastly, we will wrap up with time for questions and an open discussion. Yes, the production of clothing has actually doubled in just the last 15 years. And at the same time, the market prices have dropped, which means that clothes are often treated as disposable. As a result, that means that about 75% of clothing ends up in landfills, which is a massive waste of both resources and value. Currently, about 1% of clothing can actually be considered circular, where they are designed and produced in a way that keeps materials in use. That leaves enormous room for improvement, and the potential is huge. By reusing resources and closing the loop, the industry could actually significantly reduce waste and the environmental impact. The EU has set already ambitious goals, for example, targeting a 100% circular economy by 2050. That means that this transition isn't only optional, but it's actually a requirement. And in addition to this new legislation, will also soon require companies to back up any circular claims with validated data. And it's not only the policymakers that are driving this change, also investors and consumers are demanding more transparency and real action, pushing the industry towards change. When we actually talk about product circularity, it comes down to 3 core pillars. The first is circular design. This means that products will be designed from the start so they can be reused, repaired, or recycled. And it's about thinking beyond a single life cycle and planning for durability and resource recovery. The second is circular sourcing, using more recycled and renewable inputs in the production. This reduces reliance on virgin raw materials and helps lower the environmental footprint of textiles. And third, circular systems that put the right infrastructure in place. That, for example, includes take-back programs, recovery processes, and data sharing along the supply chain so that the products can truly stay in circulation. Together, these 3 pillars form the foundation of a circular textile economy. In a circular economy, the products move within 2 interconnected cycles, the biological and the technical. in the biological cycle that relates to materials that can safely return to the nature after the use. For example, natural fibers or biodegradable materials. These can then be composted or regenerated, closing the loop in an environmentally safe way. Next, the technical cycle deals with materials that need to be recovered, reused, or recycled without losing their quality. For example, they are metals, synthetic textiles, or durable components. These materials are then kept in circulation through repair, refurbishment, or recycling systems. Understanding these two cycles is the key to designing truly circular products and systems, because each requires different strategies and infrastructure. And ultimately, combining both of these cycles helps us move toward a system where waste doesn't exist and resources are continuously renewed. Research shows that extending the life of garment by just 9 months can actually reduce its carbon, water, and waste footprint by 20 to 30%. This comes from studies by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and WRAP, the Waste and Resources Action Program. And one practical way to extend garment life is through repairs. Common repairs include, for example, fixing zippers, seams, hems, buttons, and treatments for leather garments. Some governments are already acting to promote repair. Let's take France, for example. They've introduced a repair bonus that incentivizes textile and footwear repairs, making it easier and more affordable for consumers to extend the life of their products. This shows that policy can support circularity, but beyond the policy, also design for repairability is critical. If products are designed so that repairs are easy, affordable, and accessible, we can greatly reduce waste and extend the usable life of clothing. Design for repairability is not just good for the environment, but it's also good for business, building trust with consumers who want durable products and reducing the strain on supply chains. While circularity offers huge potential, there are also challenges in textile recycling that we need to address here. First, the textile blends and trims make recycling difficult. Mixed materials like, for example, cotton polyester blends or garments with zippers, buttons, and other attachments are actually hard to process and separate. Second, there's also the issue of unknown chemical compositions. For example, dyes, coatings, and finishes can contain hazardous substances which pose risks if materials are recycled without proper testing and management. And third, post-consumer recycling depends really on clean and sorted inputs. Contaminated, mixed, or low-quality textiles reduce the efficiency of recycling processes and the quality of the output material. And lastly, biological cycling infrastructure, for example, industrial composting for biodegradable textiles, is unfortunately not yet widely developed. And without the proper facilities, even compostable textiles may end up in landfills. These challenges highlight that circularity requires not only the product design and consumer engagement, but also the technical solutions and infrastructure to close the loop effectively. And to move toward a circular textile industry, it's essential to leverage the right tools and partnerships. Here we have listed several tools for you. One valuable resource is the Circular Fashion Solution Provider list that is found in the Textile Circularity User Guidance by Cradle to Cradle, where companies and solutions are listed that support circular design, sourcing, recycling, and reuse. Also, the Web Textile Sorting and Recycling Database is another key tool that provides detailed information on the textile recycling capabilities across the EU and the UK. On a global scale, there is the Fashion for Good Recycler database that offers a network of recyclers and innovators advancing the textile circularity. Then we have the Sustain 20 platform, which is a collaborative hub for the sustainable fashion and textile innovations, and that brings together brands, suppliers, and innovators. And lastly, there's the World of Waste tool that is designed to help companies understand waste flows, identify opportunities for circular interventions, and also measure potential impacts. And now let me hand over back to Karin.
Thank you, Kim. Let me talk about the specific requirements in the standard, the version 4.1, which is the valid version right now. But before I dive deeper into the certification requirements for 4.1, I would like to inform you about the update to version 4.2 that will come in the next months. The standard update to version 4.2 will put more focus on product and production level impact requirements and less on corporate, process-based and regulatory compliance ones. with measurable results generating accessible and transferable data. So there will be a certain simplification in the version 4.2. And the Institute, the Cradle to Cradle Institute, they are in the process of developing the version 4.2 now, together with the standard steering committee, also together with the assessment bodies. And there will be a public comment period probably in November. And after that, the publication of the version 4.2 is scheduled for end of 2025. And I will now take you through the requirements of the version 4.1 at a quite a detailed level. And now we are really focusing on the cradle-to-cradle certified standard for circularity. So the cradle-to-cradle certified standard is a globally recognized standard that goes beyond traditional sustainability. It focuses on designing products that are safe, circular, and responsibly made. The full scope certification is built around 5 key categories. So we have material health, which has a lot to do with the chemical composition of the products and the production. We have product circularity, we have clean air and climate protection, we have water and soil stewardship, and we have social fairness. And there are also some packaging requirements included in the standard. So for the circularity certification specifically, the standard includes some of the material health aspects and all of the product circularity aspects, and as well also some packaging requirements. But the other sections, clean air, water and soil, and social fairness, are actually excluded from this from the circularity standard and the certification. So the circularity standard is like really has a focus, is taking out in particular the circularity piece out of the full standard. And we will first speak about the product circularity requirements. So the commitment here, it is to ensure products are intentionally designed for their next use and are actively cycled in their intended cycling pathways. So we are really focusing on making sure that the products can have a second life and a third life, etc., and that they don't just are dumped into a landfill, for example. And then for product circularity, the requirements are, and you will remember that there are 4 different levels in the standard. We have the bronze level, the silver level, the gold level, and the platinum level. So for product circularity at bronze level, the requirements are to define the intended pathways for cycling for the products and its materials, to define a plan for improving the cycling infrastructure, and identify also cycling partnerships. So you actually need to know quite a lot about the infrastructure in the countries where you are selling your products. And as an alternative, you can report the limitations publicly. If there are limitations in terms of infrastructure, then you can actually report about these limitations, but it needs to be a public report about that. And then you need to ensure that at least 50% of the materials by weight are compatible with the intended cycling pathways. You need to ensure circularity data and cycling instructions are available so that the consumers know how they can cycle the products. And then for the silver level, you need to initiate cycling partnerships. And then you need to ensure now that 70% or more of the materials are compatible with intended cycling pathways. So you can see for bronze level, it was more than 50%. Now we are at more than 70%. You also need to have a percentage of the cycled and or renewable content that is equal to industry averages and or is consistent with common practice. And there is also an alternative in this case that you can report about the limitations that you might have. And then you should develop a strategy for improvement of product circularity. So we don't know what the version 4.2 will include in detail, but define the strategy for improvement could be one of the examples of requirements that might be moved out in the version 4.2. But as I said, nothing is decided yet. It's all in discussion yet. And now if we move on to the goal level, now we need to ensure that more than 90% of the materials are compatible with the intended cycling pathways. We need to know that the percentage of the cycled and renewable content is equal to the industry leadership. And then we also need to ensure that the materials are compatible for high-value cycling. We need to design the products for disassembly. And we also need to actively cycle the product and or implement a program to increase the cycling rate or quality of the product's materials after use. And moving on to the highest level, the best level, so to say, this is the platinum level. And now we need to ensure that more than 99% of the materials by weight are compatible with intended cycling pathways. So a very challenging requirement, actually. And what we see is that many brands and suppliers that are going through this certification, and they start at bronze level and then they move up over the years. And there is also a requirement that you should be moving upwards over the years. But as we can see here, the platinum requirements are quite strict. And the next requirement at platinum level is that the percentage of the cycled and or renewable content is equal to the technical maximum. And then at least 2 intended cycling pathways for the product and its materials should be defined. And a minimum amount of the product should be cycled, and a monitoring program to track cycling rates should be demonstrated. So these are now for the circularity requirements, and obviously these are just a summary of the main requirements. In the standard itself, there are a lot of detailed sub-requirements and explanations in how to do this and what are the exact requirements and detailed requirements. And now, so under the 4.1, you can expect the following steps in the assessment process for product circularity. So the information on recycled and renewable content will be collected for the product materials. This may include data and documentation collection from the supply chain to confirm recycled or renewable content claims. And this is a general requirement in the standard. You need to work with the final manufacturing stage. Perhaps it is in-house with you, or perhaps it is something you have outsourced to a supplier. And even so, you also need to collect a lot of information from the suppliers. And then the majority of the products are required to have recycled renewable content in the materials in order to achieve silver or higher. And that gold post-consumer recycled content is also required for many material types. Biological materials from certain crops associated with ecosystem destruction, for example, palm oil, must be certified to an accepted standard to be counted as renewable. And the Cradle to Cradle Product Institute, they have actually provided a long list of the different certifications that you can use to fulfill some of the requirements in the standard. And then the applicant will create a cycling plan for the product that demonstrates that the product is aligned with circularity standard. So depending on the achievement level and product type, documentation may be required to validate the cycling claims and show evidence of active cycling. What is also important, that is to note that there are certain products that are not eligible to achieve bronze or silver level in the product circularity. And these specific products, they must be at least gold in this section. For example, this is applicable to single-use plastic products and also plastic packaging products. And at the material level, so now we are talking about the materials themselves. The assessment, it will undergo the following steps. So first, the cycling pathway will need to be defined for each material, and then the input materials will be evaluated for alignment. Third, testing results and/or chain of custody documentation will be collected. So with chain of custody, we mean that the supply chain moving then upstreams should be able to show the corresponding documentation and proof. And then fourth, at the silver level, a plan for increasing the percentage of renewable or recycled material will be developed. And fifth, at the gold level, it will be needed to be demonstrated that materials are compatible with the intended cycling pathways and have high value cycling potential. So let me also demonstrate now the material compatibility for the respective cycling pathway. So Kim already mentioned the biological and the technical pathway. So the biological cycle, it includes requirements such as material at maximum thickness and density must biodegrade in intended pathway, for example, composting, aerobic, etc., as specified by a compostability standard test. Organic additives of more than 1%, they must also biodegrade as specified by the biodegradability standard test. And then a soil sample from disintegration testing of material must pass an ecotoxicity test to confirm that it is conducive also to plant growth, that it doesn't hinder or block plant growth. And the technical cycle requires that materials must be cyclable in the intended technical pathway, which can be municipal recycling, take-back programs, etc. And evidence of the compatibility of materials must be provided or confirmed in the assessment. Homogeneous materials that need to be separated in order to be cycled must also be separable by entity implementing the cycle. And for materials with unavoidable release to the environment, one example can be tires. The percentage on average likely to be released cannot be counted towards compatibility with the technical cycle. So it's a bit of a complex requirement. And then high value cycling requires that the materials must not contain additives or features that are likely to result in low value reprocessed materials. And materials must also be able to substitute for virgin material without a loss of essential product function or material durability, contain at least 80% renewable or post-consumer recycled content, or have at least 2 plausible next uses. And now at the product level, the assessment will undergo the following steps. First, a plan on how to implement cycling for the product needs to be developed. Second, evidence of relevant partnerships or internal resources need to be described and provided. Third, circularity data and cycling instructions need to be made publicly available. And fourth, a plan for implementing a circular design opportunity or innovation will be developed or implemented. And then fifth, at the gold level, it will need to be demonstrated that active cycling is in place for the product and/or program to increase that the cycling is implemented. So you can see there is always a higher and higher requirement, let's say. And then a key element of advancing circularity is transparent, standardized, and accessible data. And this is where the cradle-to-cradle circular data report comes in. The cradle-to-cradle circular data report aligns closely with the European Union's Digital Product Passport initiative. This alignment means it supports the European Union's goal of improving product information transparency and enabling easier reuse, repair, recycling, and also safe disposal in the cases where disposal is the only path forward. And the cradle-to-cradle circular data report gives information on circular attributes as well as cycling instructions. Now, when we come to the requirements for material health within the circularity standard, and these are at bronze level, to ensure that product is in compliance with the restricted substances list, the RSL, and ensure that the product does not contain organohalogen substances of special concern, PFAS, HFRs, or highly halogenated substances, or functionally related non-halogenated classes of equivalent concern above the relevant thresholds. And at silver level, ensure product does not contain materials with more than 1% C-bonded halogen by weight. Recognize PBTs, VPVBs, etc. So a lot of different toxic chemicals. And then at gold level, no further requirements are applied. And at platinum level, also no further requirements are applied here in the material health section for the circularity. And so the steps in the assessment process for material health is to disclosure down to the chemical level that will be necessary for the certifying product. And this may involve investigation and data collection across even multiple tiers of the supply chain. All material disclosure must be accompanied by either a signed bill of materials or a signed restricted substances list declaration. And the material health assessor will review all materials in the product and confirm the cradle-to-cradle certification achievement level. And depending on the product and material types used, test results may be needed to show compliance with the cradle-to-cradle requirements, such as testing for heavy metals, pesticides, VOCs, etc. And as I already mentioned, certain products are not eligible to achieve bronze in material health. Under version 4.1, they must be at least silver in this section to be eligible for the cradle-to-cradle certification. And this includes, for example, children products, cosmetics, and personal care products. So let me also give you an overview of the restricted chemicals according to cradle-to-cradle. In general, chemicals that are hazardous for humans or the environment are restricted. And the restricted chemicals include, but are not limited to, organohalogens, for example, PFAS, halogenated flame retardants, carcinogens, mutagens, reproducive toxicants, and persistent bioaccumulative and toxic substances. So there is a whole range of chemicals that are not allowed if you are going to certify for this standard. For textile products, the RSL compliance can be demonstrated via an alternative pathway. So for textile chemical formulations, for example, a textile dye formulation, a CETIET-C ChemCheck report or equivalent report or declaration verifying the CETIET-C MRSL compliance may be used to demonstrate the Section 4.1 compliance. And this is one example of the equivalence that the Cradle to Cradle Product Institute has incorporated into the standard. Then the report or declaration must demonstrate conformance to CETIET-C level 1 at a minimum. And if this compliance pathway is used, a regulatory compliance declaration is not required, as it would be otherwise. And now, last but not least, product packaging also needs to fulfill certain requirements within the circularity standard. So product packaging needs to meet high product circularity standards at the entry level of certification, ensuring alignment with the cradle-to-cradle principles for these typically non-circular product types, while also protecting animal welfare during all production phases when material from animals is used in a certified product. So the requirements exist for packaging and materials that are included in a single sales unit at the point of purchase. Packaging materials that are added solely for shipping, they are excluded from the requirements. So packaging materials must comply with the restricted substances and must also meet the RSL and restrictions on organohalogens. There are some additional requirements for packaging. So you must meet 1 at bronze or silver level, or 2 at gold or platinum level of the criteria below. So for example, the cycled or renewable content, at least 20% consumer cycled and renewable content with recycling or compostability, 90% of all packaging by weight must meet all of them, compatible with municipal recycling systems. Plastic materials must be commonly recyclable and also accepted by municipal recycling programs where they are sold. Compostable materials must meet a recognized compostability standard, and commonly recyclable materials such as paper, steel, aluminum must not contain additives that lower the recycling quality. Then we also have for reusability and take-back programs, the packaging must be refillable, reusable, or part of a take-back program. And packaging reduction efforts must also be in place. The applicant must reduce packaging material weight or amount without affecting recyclability. And now on this slide, we have included, just for your review, the links to some of the standard documents. We have a link to the standard circularity standard. We have the restricted substances list. We have also the product standard full scope, because the circularity standard is more of a high-level indication of exactly which sections in the full standard you need to meet. So in order to understand all the details of the requirements, you would need to go to the respective sections in the full standard. And then we also have a user guidance. So the user guidance document, includes the full standard plus all the guidance related to all the specific requirement elements. And with that, I will now wish to hand over to Kim again to take us through a few case studies.
Thank you, Karin. Now I will show you two textile companies and their circularity solutions. First, we have Ralph Lauren Corporation, and Ralph Lauren currently actually has 3 products that are Cradle to Cradle certified, all at the gold level under the version 3.1. Ralph Lauren provides a strong example of how brands can integrate circularity into their operations. They, for example, have partnered with Reverso in Italy. That is a company that specializes in high-quality cashmere recycling. And through this partnership, they have launched a cashmere recycling program across North America and Europe. And what makes this program unique is actually that customers return 100% cashmere items from any brand for recycling. This approach is very powerful because it doesn't just apply to the products of Ralph Lauren itself, but it also opens the door to circularity for the wider industry and customers. And the program supports fiber-to-fiber recycling, turning old cashmere into new high-quality yarn. This closes the loop and then reduces the need for virgin raw materials. This is an excellent example of how design and partnership, as well as consumer engagement, can all work together to drive circularity at scale. As a second case study, we have G-Star Raw CV. And G-Star currently has its denim product Cradle to Cradle certified at the gold level under version 3.1. G-Star offers an inspiring example of circularity in action through its Certified Tailors program. This program provides free repairs for all denim items, covering things, for example, like zippers, seams, buttons, or other common issues. And these services are available through service points in the stores, staffed with trained tailors who can ensure the high-quality repairs. The goal in the end is to make repair easy, accessible, and attractive for all customers, and encouraging them to extend the life of their garments instead of discarding them. By focusing on repair and reuse, G-Star reduces waste, lowers the demand for new production, and strengthens the brand's sustainability profile. This program is another strong example of how circularity can be integrated into the customer service and offering value both for the consumer as well as for the environment. For organizations that are unsure about how to start or progress toward the Cradle to Cradle certification, we do offer a screening study that is basically the clear first step. And this is actually a comprehensive assessment that designs to evaluate the readiness for the certification and also identifies the most practical opportunities for improvement. So how does this work? Well, first we do conduct a baseline assessment where we review your product portfolio and all materials against the Cradle to Cradle requirements. And then we can map your current sustainability and circularity efforts. As a next step, we then perform a gap analysis where we identify your processes align or fall short of Cradle to Cradle criteria. That covers then all areas like material health, circularity, renewable energy, water stewardship, and social fairness that are included in the cradle-to-cradle assessment. And based on that, we can then create a certification roadmap with the prioritized actions that can help you to meet the standard, and also that include design improvements, sourcing strategies, and system upgrades. But important, we also help you to assess which achievement level is realistic that your organization could actually achieve. And we can also help to determine which of the standard versions is the perfect fit for your goals that you try to aim at with your organizations and your operations. And the outcome in the end is a clear and data-driven pathway that reduces the uncertainty and aligns your strategy with cradle-to-cradle requirements and makes the certification process in the end much more manageable. This way, you're not pursuing certification, but you're pursuing the right certification that is correct and right for your organization. And before we now move to the Q&A session, I would like to quickly present our company to you. So on the next slide, you can see our local verifiers and trainers that we have. And in case of any inquiry in any region, they will be happy to provide assistance to you. At L&S, we are a team of about 80 consultants and auditors globally, and we aim to help companies become sustainability leaders in their industry. Our team of experts is here to help you with any sustainability needs that you have. And we do offer strategy as well as supply chain services. Our strategy team brings extensive experience in the textile and hard goods industry and can provide climate solutions and insights to you. Moreover, our strategy team can also train and empower your sustainability teams and offer verification and assurance services. Our supply chain team has expertise in social, environmental, as well as chemical topics and can support you not only with audits, but also with trainings. And furthermore, our supply chain team can enhance your supply chain with tailored and impactful solutions. And our expert trainers and auditors are spread worldwide for you.
So now that we have explored the importance of circularity, like the cradle-to-cradle certifying, let's talk also about the next step. So first, you adopt the cradle-to-cradle circularity framework. It gives you a proven roadmap to design products that are safe, circular, and impactful. Second, engage your broader ecosystem. Work closely with suppliers, recyclers, and repair networks to enable product reuse, repair, and recycling at scale. And third, invest in design for disassembly and durability. The longer your products last and the easier they are to recycle, the stronger your circular impact. And I think that is often underestimated, the criteria of durability. Durable products, high quality products are really very beneficial for circularity and for the environmental impact and even for the social impact. And then also stay ahead of regulation and increasing consumer expectations. Circularity isn't just a sustainability goal, it's actually also a competitive advantage. And finally, contribute to the bigger vision, closing the loop by 2050. This is the EU vision, and every step you take now adds up towards a fully circular future for textiles. So this is the moment to act, and circularity is the pathway forward. Here you can see also our contact details. And again, we will be at the Textile Exchange Conference next week in Lisbon. Please feel free to reach out to us there or reach out via the contact details you can see here. Thanks so much for joining this webinar and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.